Hello and welcome to this video that's about cheating. So this is about when your husband cheats, how you can heal, reclaim your power, and save your marriage. So first, I really want to start out by saying that if you clicked on this video and you are currently going through this experience, I just want to say that I'm so sorry that you're going through that. I know that it's incredibly just devastating and heartbreaking and just incredibly painful. And I also want you to know that you're not alone. And yeah, I'm here to discuss how you can heal from that, reclaim your power, and save your marriage. So I'm so glad that you're here. Now, a quick note before diving into all of that, I just want to make a little disclaimer, and that is that although I am a relationship coach, and so this might surprise you, but I don't personally necessarily believe in marriage at all costs. Meaning that I have some of my closest friends and also family members that have chosen the path of divorce, and I fully trust that they have made the best decision for themselves and for their family. I also do not necessarily believe in divorce at all costs. So, in other words, what's right for one woman doesn't necessarily mean that it's the quote unquote right answer for another woman in a similar situation. Every woman really is the expert of her own life. Only you can decide what's best for you and for your family. My only hope is that you're prioritizing your safety and your well being, and from that grounded place, choosing the path that feels right in your heart. I also want to share that although I struggled for many, many years with jealousy and low self esteem, and I'd go as far to say as like kind of paranoia. Cheating is not part of my own story. Still, I've had the honor of walking alongside many women who have faced betrayal and wanted to restore their marriage. And I've seen them create relationships that became better than before. Women that went as far as to say that they were grateful for the affair because it was the breakdown before the breakthrough. So this is the article, or rather this video is for the woman who has already weighed her options or maybe is currently weighing her options and either has decided, yes, I want to save my marriage, or is exploring, do I want to save my marriage? So if that's you, then I'm glad you're here. This video is for you. So if your husband is cheated, you might feel like the floor has disappeared beneath you, the rug has been pulled out from under your feet. I know it's incredibly disoriented, and the questions feel endless. How could he do this? Will I ever trust him again? Am I a fool for wanting to try or for wanting to hope? So I want to start by saying this first. First of all, you're not weak for wanting to save your marriage. You are courageous for choosing to fight for something that still matters for you. I've worked with many, many women in your shoes, women who were devastated, angry, and scared, but also quietly hanging on to hope. And over time, I've seen that those same women become radiant, peaceful, and deeply connected with their husbands again. So I want to share a little story that might give you hope of what's possible. So there was a client, I'm going to call her Sarah. It's not a real name, but we'll just call her Sarah, um, who came to me after uncovered months of her husband's secret texting, meetings, and just emotionally hiding an affair. And so she was crushed. She felt stupid and she was ready to walk away. And yet, there was a reason that she reached out was because a part of her still wanted to give it another shot. She wasn't ready to walk away from her marriage. And so she did. She chose to stay. She chose to try and see what she could do and learn the intimacy skills. And her why was for herself, for her children, and for the possibility of hope. And so over the next 18 months, she learned how to honor herself, how to rebuild trust, and gradually transform the emotional climate in their home. And today, she says that her marriage is deeper, more loving, and more resilient than ever before. Now, again, I share this story not to persuade you that any which way of what you should do, you are always the expert on your own life. But I share this story to answer the question that many, many women who reach out to me want the answer to. The question being whether their situation can have a path forward towards reconciliation and a better future. So, in my experience, when an affair comes to light and the wife has decided to stay and try to save her marriage, and she starts diving into the intimacy skills, often what I see is the marriage starts to improve exponentially. And so, part of that is incredibly hopeful and exciting, right? But then what can be confusing is that during this time at the start of the journey, there can still be signs that the other woman is still present in his life, right? And that can be just a dagger to the heart. It can be so confusing and painful and incredibly frustrating. And what I've seen is that husbands can and sometimes do maintain positive relationships with both their wife and the other woman for a period of time. But here's what I've observed consistently: the wife with the intimacy skills always wins out in the end. And the reason I'm going to share why I believe that that is. If you think about it, the other woman, first of all, she doesn't know the intimacy skills. She hasn't built a life with this man, raised children with him if you have children, weathered storms together, or dreamt about the future together, right? She holds no real weight in his life except for how she makes him feel about himself. But when a wife begins showing up as her best self, and therefore he starts to feel like the man that he wants to be, well, then she becomes that source of respect, joy, and admiration. And then the other woman becomes irrelevant. She simply cannot compete with the depth of connection between husband and wife. If you aren't familiar with the six intimacy skills yet, I have mentioned them a few times, and I will, um, yeah, they're so vital if what you want is to try to save your marriage. So if you're not familiar with them yet, I do encourage you to start by grabbing my free guide, which is in the description. And it will introduce you to those skills that are so foundational to creating a relationship that he can't resist returning to authentically. So I want to give you three empowering ways to not just survive after an affair, but to thrive and to reclaim your power, your identity, your magnetism, and also, of course, to heal. So these are three actionable, self-driven strategies that you have complete control over. These aren't tactics to trap or win someone back. These are intentional choices that you make for your own strength, dignity, and clarity. So the first one is, and this one's so, so important, to feel your emotions fully and then to release them safely. So when you discover your husband's betrayal, it's normal to feel like your entire nervous system's on fire. One minute you might be sobbing uncontrollably, the next you feel icy and numb, and then you're raging at the unfairness of it all. Heartbreak, anger, sorrow, fear, disbelief, and confusion. These are all human responses to the deep wound, and there's no wrong emotion here. But here's the tricky part. When we let those emotions drive our behavior, when we lash out, demand, accuse, or replay every detail over and over, it often backfires. Not because your feelings are wrong or invalid, but because they become this fuel that burns both of you and fractures the relationship even further. So the goal isn't to suppress what you feel, but rather to honor your emotions without letting them take the wheel. So here's how to do that in a healthy and self-loving way. The first way is to give yourself permission to grieve. You have lost something. You've lost the trust, safety, the version of your marriage that you thought you had previously, and that deserves mourning. So create space for it. Write freely in a journal, cry until you can breathe again, or talk to a trusted friend, a coach, or a therapist who can hold your story without judgment. Grief is not weakness, it's what clears the pain out so that your heart can begin to heal. The next way is to release your emotions, but here's the key, to do so away from him. It's tempting to pour every ounce of your hurt and anger onto your husband because, after all, he caused the pain. But venting directly at him often creates defensiveness instead of understanding. He might shut down, withdraw, or try to justify, and the reaction can leave you feeling even more alone than before. So instead, find safe outlets where you can let it all out uncensored so that when you do interact with him, you can do so from calm strength rather than emotional chaos. So, here are a few ideas for safe containers for expression. You could record a voice memo that you never send. You could write a raw, unfiltered letter and then burn it or delete it. You could move your body, go for a power run, go walking, dancing, punch a pillow, running, stretching. Listen to a playlist where you can just scream in your car, create art, music, or poetry that channels the words that you can't. These activities release emotional pressure without damaging the fragile bridge that you're trying to rebuild. Another way is to recognize your triggers and ground yourself. You might notice sudden waves of pain when he's on his phone, for example, he's late from work, or quiet during dinner. So instead of spiraling, pause here. Breathe deeply, feel your feet on the ground, step outside, place a hand on your heart, and whisper to yourself, I am safe in this moment. The more that you practice grounding, the more quickly your body learns to come back from the edge. Next is to go from reactor to responder. Over time, you'll notice a quiet shift. The inner storm will still rise, but you'll know how to ride the waves instead of being swept away by them. You'll begin to respond with intention and wisdom instead of react. And that shift is magnetic. It shows strength, emotional maturity, and self control. It signals to your husband and to you that you're no longer at the mercy of things that you have no control over, right? Or the mercy of his actions. You are steering your emotional ship yourself. And from that calm, powerful place, real healing becomes possible. Now, the second important point that I want to go into, and this is after processing your emotions in a safe way, is to reclaim your joy and your identity. When infidelity strikes, it can feel like your entire sense of self has been stolen. Suddenly, you might not recognize the woman in the mirror. The sparkle in your eyes is dimmed, laughter feels forced, and you catch yourself tiptoeing throughout each day, measuring your worth against someone else's choices. This is what betrayal does. It can make you shrink. You can become less social, less confident, more anxious. You can start to live small, afraid that another blow could knock you off your feet for good. But here's the truth, your joy and identity are still there and they're yours to reclaim. They might be buried under layers of hurt and fear, but they haven't disappeared. They're not inaccessible to you. And one of the greatest gifts hidden inside the painful season is the invitation to come home to you. You're not just a wife or a betrayed partner. You're a woman with passions, gifts, and light that existed long before this relationship. And that light can never be truly extinguished. So here are some gentle, practical ways to begin reclaiming yourself. First is to reconnect with what makes you come alive. Revisit hobbies, movement, and creative outlets that once lit you up or that you've never explored before but you want to. Painting, dancing, gardening, cooking, writing, singing. These aren't frivolous distractions, they're lifelines that remind you of your body and spirit of joy. When you create beauty, even in small ways, you reclaim agency over your life. Also is so important is to commit to daily self-care rituals. You don't have to overhaul your life overnight. Healing happens through small, sacred acts repeated daily. This could be going for a morning walk outside, lighting a candle while you journal. Maybe you play your favorite song and let yourself feel it while you take a shower. Maybe you take time to nourish your body and your skin. These moments whisper to your nervous system, I am safe, I matter, I am worth care. Next is to, and this was so important too, curate your circle wisely. Pain can make you vulnerable to negativity and gossip. Protect your peace by surrounding yourself with people who lift you up, not those who feed your fear. Set gentle but firm, boundaries. You honor yourself with by honoring your limits and honoring your desires. So that means steering clear from draining conversations or relationships that make you spiral into emotional turmoil. See, it's important to seek connection with women who radiate calm, courage, and faith. Their energy will remind you what's possible. It's so important also to set small, joyful goals. Each tiny success, cleaning out a drawer, trying out a new recipe, finishing a book, build confidence. Progress, not perfection, here is the goal. Every step that you take to nurture your life reminds you that you're capable and strong. And practicing gratitude, especially when it feels impossible. Gratitude doesn't mean you're pretending that everything's fine. It means anchoring yourself in what is still good. Your children's laughter, a warm bath, the sun on your skin, or the cuddles of your cat or your dog. These small moments of appreciation help your brain rewire from fear to hope and from lack to abundance. As you begin to restore your joy and your identity, you'll notice something remarkable. You'll start to glow again, not because you waited for life to be perfect in order to heal, but because you chose to begin healing yourself. And that glow is magnetic. It radiates peace, confidence, and grounded feminine energy. It reminds both you and him that you are more than what happened. You are a woman of depth, resilience, and light. And from that place of self-connection, love can be rebuilt, not from desperation or chasing, but from strength. The third very important point and way that I want to share with you today is to model respectful presence even in the face of pain. This might feel almost impossible because how do you show respect to somebody who has betrayed your trust or broken your heart? It's a fair question. When you've been wronged, every cell in your body screams for justice, explanation, and proof of remorse. The urge to lash out, interrogate, or demand change is primal and so understandable. But here's the paradox. The very behaviors that feel most justified in the moment often push connection even further away. That doesn't mean that you have to excuse or tolerate mistreatment, not at all. It simply means that if your ultimate goal is to restore closeness and emotional safety, the way you respond to the chaos matters just as much as the chaos itself. Respectful presence is not about being a doormat. It's not silence, submission, or pretending everything's fine. It's about holding your center, staying grounded, dignified, and calm so that you can influence the emotional climate rather than be swept up in it. Your responses set the tone. When you anchor in calm strength, it invites calm in return. It signals to your husband that you're not his adversary, but also not his emotional dumping ground. You become the emotional leader in your relationship, the thermostat, not the thermometer. Here's what it looks like in everyday moments. You respond calmly instead of reacting explosively. So let's say that he says something hurtful or defensive or dismissive. You pause before replying. You take a breath. Even if you eventually do decide to say something, you do so from a calm composure that makes your words more powerful. Emotional restraint isn't repression, it's wisdom. It's giving yourself permission to really honor yourself in the moment and get in touch with how you really feel and process it. It also looks like asking, um, getting curious instead of making accusations. So rather than, how could you do this to me? It could be just staying open and curious to, gosh, how did this happen to us? Right? You're not condoning his behavior, but rather you are opening the door to insight where accusations would close the door. You also express pure desires. So this would be, or rather, you get in touch with your desires for yourself. So this would be avoiding ultimatums or sweeping statements, and instead speaking from a place of vulnerability, speaking from a place of authenticity, So it could be a wonderful, wonderful question that could be a guide for you is, how do I feel? What do I want? And the key here is, what do I want that's within my control? So it's not, I want him to beg for forgiveness from me, right? It's totally okay to want that, but it's the question here is, how do I feel? What do I want that I have control over? Let's say I feel sad. What do I want? I want to laugh. I'm going to call that friend that always finds a way to make me burst out laughing, even in the darkest days. So, how do I feel? What do I want? Next is also honoring your limits. So, respect also, yes, we've talked about respecting him, but I want to talk now about respecting yourself. You get to decide what you take onto your plate. And right now, when there's so much already on your emotional plate, you may want to consider not taking on anything else that's going to drain you, and even removing things that may have already been there for a long time if they're draining you. Really carving out emotional and physical space for yourself. So this isn't to try to punish him or teach him a lesson or anything like that. This is really to honor you and give yourself the clarity and self-respect and emotional space to breathe and to heal. Next is to stand firm in your dignity. So let's say that he's getting angry, defensive, or distant. You resist the urge to match his energy. You stay steady. You stay soft if you can and open. You leave the room if you need to. When you stand tall in your grace and composure, you remind both of you that chaos is not your home. You are. Respect does not equal approval. I hear this all the time from women. If I'm respecting him, won't he think what he did is okay? It does not mean that you're saying what you did is okay. It means you're saying, I'm not going to lose myself. I'm going to heal from this. That steadiness is powerful. It restores a sense of safety in the relationship, the safety that he needs in order to have the ability to feel that remorse and to want to return, and the safety that you need, most importantly, to rebuild trust without losing your self-respect. And often that quiet strength is what ultimately shifts everything. When a wife holds her center with grace, it draws out the best in her husband as well. It reminds him of the woman that he fell in love with, the one who saw his potential, not just his mistakes. And over time, that energy of respect becomes the foundation of rebuilding love. So, to give you a little mental roadmap, here's how I often see healing progress. And of course, this is not across the board for everyone. This doesn't mean this is exactly how it's going to happen for you. But this is what I often see. First is the phase of shock and disorientation, where you feel total overwhelm and numbness and panic. And here, what I say is most important, I'd invite you to consider to create emotional and physical safety for yourself. Remove painful triggers as much as possible and dive into self-care. Then there's a phase of anger, questioning, and grief, where you feel rage, confusion, and this demand for clarity. And so here I'd invite you to process your emotions in healthy ways, to resist, those scorched earth reactions that um, can be so tempting. Then is the phase of testing. The tension is still palpable and there's still mistrust. So here it can feel like mood swings, distancing, small reconciliations, and then kind of swinging away again. So here I'd invite you to honor your limits and desires, to stay steady and not to rush the timeline of healing and reconnection. Then is the phase of tentative reconnection. So here there is small trust being rebuilt little by little, guarded hope. And here I invite you to practice gratitude. Keep track of all of your wins and choose faith over fear. And lastly is deepening and transformation. That's when there's mutual trust and deeper communication. And here I invite you to open up more deeply to intimacy and receiving, to continue learning, growing, and reinvesting. In many cases, the turning point comes when the wife stops trying to get him back and starts anchoring to herself, her highest standards, and her inner peace. This doesn't always fix things overnight. In fact, it doesn't fix things overnight, but it does change the trajectory in an undeniably powerful way. So, I want to give you a quick recap because I know that was a lot to cover. First and foremost, you're not alone. Betrayal is awful, but healing is possible if that's what you want. You're the expert of your life. I'm here as a guide, not as somebody who tells you what you must do. The 6 intimacy skills are foundational to renewing connection. And remember, you can grab your free guide in the description to get started. You cannot control his choices or his actions, but you can control how you respond, how you heal, and how you rebuild your joy and identity. The 3 core strategies: feel and release your emotions, reclaim your joy and identity, and show respectful presence. Healing often happens in these phases: shock, grief and anger, tension, reconnection, and finally, transformation. Your steadiness matters more than any clever tactic. So, if you want a clear, gentle, actionable roadmap to use right now, I invite you once again to download the free guide that's going to introduce you to the 6 intimacy skills. It's the foundation many women have used to shift their marriages from crawling back to thriving. And I want to leave you with a final word of hope. Sometimes what's broken becomes the very place that light gets in. You're not defined by this betrayal. You're more capable, more wise, and more courageous than you feel in this moment. With intention, time, and the right principles, you can emerge with a heart that's stronger, clearer, and more aligned than ever. And you can emerge with a marriage that's restored and that leads you somewhere new. You deserve grace, clarity, purpose, and above all, the love that aligns you with your highest path. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you again next time. Bye bye.